Welcome back to Dummy Boy Finance. I'm Dummy Boy, and right now I want to go over the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ because a lot of you guys are concerned about the current market correction that we're in. So I just want to keep you guys as updated as possible on what could possibly happen and what to look out for to better position yourself in the current markets. So we're looking at the S&P 500 right now, and on a technical basis, we actually had a pretty solid day today. We closed above our 50-day moving average, and so this is bullish on a short-term basis because we did close above a significant support, but there's still a lot of stuff that is happening in the world that does not favor the growth of the NASDAQ, especially because if you just kind of look at what's happening with the yields, they're expecting lower returns overall in corporate. And so if you guys have an overvalued market with a cap on revenues, we should start to see valuations come down to earth. And that's what's been happening so far. So you've had a lot of opportunities to buy the dip on certain stocks that aren't really going to be affected, like the big tech that has blown up the past couple months. And so we have a short-term descending pattern right now here on the S&P 500. And so we have this right here. You can see anytime we have treated this bottom line of support, we bounce up, but every time we reach resistance, we get rejected. And so because we closed above our 50 SMA, I would love to see a back test next week of this top line of resistance. I do believe at this point we will get a turnaround and we will start to fall back down. However, if we do see some good news come out, maybe about the $1.9 trillion package, we may get enough volume here to break above this point. And if we do break above this point, that is extremely bullish for the stock market in the short term. But until we do, we are going to keep our bearish outlook right now, as we are still in this descending pattern and we could see more room to the downside. And so if we go over here and we look at the NASDAQ is actually trading right above our 100-day SMA. And so relative to our SMAs, we are actually a lot lower in the NASDAQ, which makes sense because the NASDAQ has all the big tech that exploded during this huge bull run. And so it's going to see the most amount of downside whenever there's a correction. And so currently we did actually close out here on a pretty good note as well. We did close above our 100-day SMA. However, I just believe this being a head fake. Like I've mentioned in my previous videos, the market seems like it's moving 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. And so we saw green to start the week on Monday, and then we see green to close the week on a Friday, but in between we had a whole bunch of red. And so I do believe we're going to continue this pattern maybe for the next month or two until we start settling into a bottom. On the NASDAQ, I do think there's more room to the downside. If I just look at Tesla, we broke key levels on Tesla, and so if we start to continue the sell-off there, I do see further bleeding in the NASDAQ. And just on a technical basis, the NASDAQ is going to be the most vulnerable index during this correction, and it is visible just off a technical basis, as the S&P is above our 50 SMA, whereas our NASDAQ is only above our 100 SMA. And so next week is going to be a huge make or break week for the market. If we continue our price action to the downside, I would not be surprised at all if we get down to this point here at our 200-day SMA. On the flip side, if we see some good news over the weekend and we start to climb our way back above this 100-day SMA and we start to hold this, we could be starting our next leg up on the NASDAQ, and this could be a very nice opportunity to buy the dip. And so those investors who are long on the stock market, these are actually very great opportunities to be buying the dip. If you kind of just look at the recent history of the stock market, anytime if you had bought on the 100-day SMA, you can see if you held onto it, you would have made a lot of money. Anytime you get to this point, you do see a run. And so the track record on the NASDAQ or any index in general, anytime you can buy up on a 100-day SMA, does prove to be a good buying point for a long position. In the short term, we could see further bleeding to the downside, but in the grand schemes, in the longer run, the NASDAQ is only going to climb higher. Tech is just going to get more and more valuable. And so in terms of a longer position, you will make money at these prices, and you are getting them at a fairly decent valuation on a technical basis. Ideally, if you can get them at a 200-day SMA or even below a 200-day SMA, that is an absolutely golden opportunity. Like, we see the market crash in 2020. We were well below our 200-day SMA, and if you bought this dip, look where you would have been right now. And so we could still see further downside, but if you are an investor, a long-term investor, these are golden opportunities to buy the dip. So always have cash on hand, be ready to deploy when needed. I would still be waiting patiently just to see if the market does go down a little bit lower, because we have had such a substantial run. I would not be surprised to see a larger sell-off. We had a crazy sell-off midday, but we did recover those gains at the end of the session. And like I said, we aren't going to see that one drop to the ground. We are going to see a lot of volatility in between. And so it is a good opportunity to trade, in my opinion. And so that is why we do this technical analysis, so we can better position ourselves and our money for the future. And so if you enjoyed this quick little update video, don't forget to like. We are on the road to 10K subs. If you made it to this point, feel free to hit that subscription button. It's Dummy Boy Finance. I'm Dummy Boy, and I will see you guys in the next one.